Now you're probably wondering how on earth you make a time lapse like this. Well, if you stick through the entire video, I'm going to show you how to do it. And the first thing you need to do is to head down into the description and follow each one of the tutorials for the different mods listed on screen. Each of these tutorials helped me so much when it came to learning the basics of this stuff and how to install it. So save this video and then go check those out and come back when you finished. And I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on both Litematica and the replay mod for all of the necessary tools you'll need in order to make builds and time lapses like the Hermits. Now, assuming that you've installed and downloaded everything correctly, you should see this little replay viewer right here, and down the bottom left, you'll see that little modded symbol that no one cares about. So we're going to open up a single player world and go into any sort of creative testing world. And the idea now is you want to build a build that you are proud of and you want to create. So for example, let's just take this guy right here. This is a simple guards tower that I built, and I have a Let's Build series on the channel, and it'll be linked at the end of this video if you want to check it out. And I teach you how to become a better builder so you can make builds like this, and I provide the schematics. You're welcome. So now what I actually have to do is get a schematic of this bad boy right behind me. In order to do that, I need to actually go into the search items here and search for stick. Grab your stick, and you want to head right over here. And you see how I'm in corners mode at the bottom? That's what we want. What you gotta do is left click your diamond block right there, and right click this diamond block up here. You're gonna need to place these on your own. They don't have to actually be diamond blocks. However, you do need to click it with the stick. And what this did is it created a perimeter from each of these corners, and everything inside of that box is going to be your schematic. So if I take off my shaders, you're going to notice that this box has now appeared. Shaders do not work well with Schematica. I can show you the real joys of that later, but this is what we've got. So now the next step is press M on your keyboard and head over to Area Editor, and then you want to save schematic, and we can call this whatever you want. We'll call this test buildy thingy, something professional of the sorts. Save the schematic, and it has been successfully saved. So just like that, we've actually created a schematic. But now the next step is to actually go into a world that we want to build this in and start laying out the schematic. So I'll see you guys over there. And hello! Now that we've made it into our world, we actually have a little plot of land here that will be really, really nice for our build. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually press M, and we're going to go to load schematics. Once we go to load schematics, we're going to look for the schematic we want, which is our super professional name test build thingy. We're going to left click that and then left click load schematic. And it's been successfully loaded, as you can see the text in green. And look at this beauty. My goodness, what a babe. So we noticed that this thing is all in all of the wrong places. Yeah, so we need to fix that. It's floating up in the air. It's not facing the right direction. We want to flip it around, maybe move it. So if we press M and go into loaded schematics, and I lied, if we go to schematic placements and go to configure, and you can see this placement origin set up. And what this does is it actually allows us to translate, rotate, and that's about it. So what we can do is actually set up the right orientation for what we want this house to be positioned in. This is the front door right here, and I want that to be facing this way. So if I press M and go to schematic placements and configure, I can just counterclockwise, clockwise, boom. Okay, just like that, I have now rotated this so that the actual door right there is now facing out this way, but it's still a little too far forward. So I'm going to go back to schematic placements and go to configure and go to the Cartesian coordinates here, and I can actually slide these with my scroll mouse all the way to where I want it. And perfect. So now we've got the house where we want it, and it looks like everything's going to be all set and dandy. So the next thing is you want to be able to actually build this thing correctly. And there's this cool little feature I learned about. If you press M and go into Configuration Manager, you're going to see this easy place hold enabled, and that is set originally to false, but I set it to true. And what this does is when activated, it actually allows you to just right click, and if you just hold that, it's going to start placing in the blocks, which is super useful. And that's how a lot of the hermits actually go about creating these really intricate builds and seemingly not making any mistakes in the cuts. So the last thing you need to do before easy mode can be activated is you have to set a hotkey to it. And what I do is I go into the configuration menu and go to hotkeys. And so if you search easy, you're going to find easy place toggle. And I set the hotkey to V. This hotkey can be whatever you really want. It doesn't really matter. But that's going to allow it. So when you have V off, notice I'm holding right click. You're going to have to trust me on that one. But nothing's placing. As soon as I press V, look at that. Things are starting to place. That is how they do it. The next thing you need to do is head into your escape button. And as soon as you're ready to start building this thing, hit start recording, and you're going to see this little recording icon up here in the top left. That means you're good to go. We can start building. So I'll meet up with you guys once this whole thing is completed. And done. Okay, so now that this whole thing's built up, I can actually then go escape and stop recording. And I go hit back. And then from there, we've got the whole build basically made up, nice and dandy, all that good stuff. So we can save and quit to title, and we can save our replay file. Save it to a name you'll remember, like Super Professional Name. You know, something like that. Thingy. And now here is one of the more important parts of learning how to time-lapse like the Hermits, and knowing how to use the replay mod. So let's hop right into that. So you can see here we have our super professional name thingy. So let's load that up, and it's going to take a little bit, especially if it's a longer clip. This one actually ended up being about an hour, so that's something to keep in mind. Now guys, once you're in the replay mod that you're trying to work with and you're in the file, something I always like to do is actually set the speed of the replay to sort of match the pacing of the video. So if it's going to be a slower montage and you want to keep things a little more detail oriented, well, keep that to 1.0 speed, or maybe 2, or maybe even less. The point is, adjust speed accordingly to the speed of the video. And as this is a big build and I want to have a lot of energy, I'm going to be ramping that speed up all the way to 8. So as you can see, I'm not actually playing or pausing the replay in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually letting myself keep that dynamic momentum by grabbing shots as the replay moves along. And I'm actually going along on my own and trying to keep myself in the center as much as possible while moving around dynamically and pressing O and I, which are your position and time keyframes. And I'm just going to swing through this and just give it a rough pass just to show you guys the example. And I really want to capture a lot of good shots. So what I'm going to do off camera, so I don't bore you, is just grab some good angles. And that's up to the eye of the beholder. And that's kind of what makes this an art form. So this next part is going to take some time to perfect, figuring out which angles it is that are really going to suit the time lapse that you're looking for. So I promise you, just keep working at it. We all start somewhere. You're super cool and super awesome. I will gas you up any day. Just keep going, man. Just keep practicing. Okie dokie, you lovely people. So I am currently in the editing software right now. I use DaVinci Resolve personally. It's free and super powerful. So I'm going to link that in the description for all you lovely people that want to give it a shot. So now I'm just going and I'm actually dragging over the replay file that was rendered from the actual replay mod inside Minecraft. And I'm just going to drag and drop that into the editing software. So now we need to focus on what is the pacing of this time lapse. And you should have had a somewhat idea when you were making the camera shots, but for me, I want to create a very energetic, inspirational kind of time lapse, and I want to have a lot of nice dancing EDM electronic music. So I've got a general gist of what I want to do. So I'm going to actually head over to the YouTube audio library, and this has a huge collection of all of the different types of musics that you could ever want that you can put in attribution free potentially depending on the license type, and they will not copyright strike you. This has been vetted by YouTube themselves, and it is such a great resource. This is what I use when I am making my time lapses. So now it's time to pick the song, and I'm actually going to be using the song Unstoppable by Spence. It's also on the YouTube audio library, and that is what I use at the end of each of my Let's Build episodes. And it's such an inspirational, upbeat song, and it really captures a lot of energy that I'm trying to achieve with the goal of this time lapse. So the first thing I want to take care of is finding the points in the music wherever they lie and trying to figure out where the next beat hits. If anyone's taken musical theory, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm currently just selecting random points to make a point right now, puns. And the next thing that I try to do is find little clips of key points in the build, and I'll actually take those and use them as some clips. So if I were to just snip and drag different sections of the area and trim them down to the beats, And remember that the beats might not actually be in line with this example. Once I go through the final product, it'll be a lot more polished. And you're going to notice that all I'm doing is lining up the video to match the music, not the other way around. A lot of people try and go the other way around, and that is something I try to avoid. So now that the music and volume's been adjusted a little bit, I can actually just check this out and we can play this out and see how this comes out. So that sounds pretty good. And this is all I do. It's very straightforward. I match the video to the music, and that's it. So I'm gonna go through right now and get the rest of this all put together, and you guys can do the same on your end, and let's see what the final product's gonna look out to be. And if you'll notice right now, you're gonna hear some music slowly building up, and I want you to take note of that, because when that beat drops, we're gonna get right into the time lapse. Alright, so I just finished up this time lapse, and honestly, I'm thinking now, don't forget to squaddle, and subscribe for some more time lapses. But let us see what the final product came out to be.